went on down to her, in the Air Force. I was just 18, I guess, and I then went on through into the war, and that was pretty eventful because right from the time you started, you had to do boot camp, and they laid it right on to you so that if you didn't meet up to what they wanted us to do, then you were going somewhere else. Maybe you'd be washing dishes or something in the Air Force. But I'd made up my mind I wanted to be a pilot and a fighter pilot, and everywhere I went in that Air Force, they'd ask you time after time, they give you an interview, well, what would you like to be? Well, I want to be a fighter pilot, Spitfire pilot. And they said, well, what if you what's your second choice? I got in trouble a couple of times. I said, Spitfire pilot and fighter pilot. And that's the God's honest truth. I still think about some of those things. I was quite young. I was flying Hurricanes when I was 19. I was a great fighter. And a lot of things that you had to learn. You only had one chance in an aircraft if you make a mistake. Mostly you only have one chance. I can tell you what, when I was about 8 or 10 years old, I lived up in the Rooster Junction, and on my birthday, July the 24th, I was 8 or 10 years old and had some kids around from the school. It was quite rural. And I can still remember this, going around the side of the house, and I looked up in the air and I saw my first aircraft. And it was an aircraft coming over from the States going in an easterly direction. And I thought, holy cow, I'd heard of them, but I didn't really, I was just a kid. And from that time forward, until I got in a Tiger Moth in Goderich, Ontario, and got a flight with an instructor and learned the solo of the thing, do what he said, I wanted to be a pilot. And my first solo was just, I wasn't the slightest bit scared at all. I figured I was the hottest pilot in North America, including all the Germans. But they were the same kind of people as we were. Well, there was one other time that I thought we wouldn't survive. Was the first time I went over the Ruhr Valley. We were in Europe. We were going up towards where the Ruhr Valley, you know, and the bombers going in, and we would be close enough so we could escort them. And we went in about 3 o'clock one afternoon, and it wasn't target entry, it was target cover or target withdrawal. So help me, Hannah, I thought that the whole of that area that we could see was on fire because the smoke was up around, I suppose 15, 20,000 feet. And the closer I got, I realized that it wasn't fires that had started up that high, the smoke up that high. I thought the whole Ruhr Valley was on fire, and when I got up closer, it was shell bursts from the German 88 millimeter things. And I thought, nobody in their right mind can fly through that and live. There's no, gosh, I almost said a bad word, to get through that. And we flew into that. Some people get killed, get hit, stuff like that. I never did. I don't know why. But I was very much, I thought, well, I'm not turning back because we were in a formation. I wouldn't turn back if they put me through the main door of hell. And when I mentioned to my flight commander, Bill Brown, I said, the truck's 9 o'clock, Wonder Leader. And he, Wonder Blue Leader, that was our section. But anyway, he said, okay, Art, go get him, we'll give you top cover. That'd keep from other people from coming down on him, maybe Germans sneaking in. And I was going down, I was through some awfully heavy fire, and they had a lot of tracer, a tremendous amount of tracer. I'd like to have $1 for every tracer bullet went the other way. That was fear, too. Anyway, I noticed that their fire switched to their left, and I thought maybe they're, and I had made us down, I can still remember this, went down like that and stayed over the woods and then pulled up. Just as I was pulled up, I heard Brownie say, I'm hit, I'm going home. And I didn't expect that. But I was at his grave when I was over there. He saved my life. I'm still living. He died that day, August the 13th. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have got on that one, but it's silly, isn't it? But I was at his grave, and it's kind of, very moving. It was inclusion day. My son was with me and my daughter. And I stood there by the tombstone, so that's great. Put flowers on it.
This was just a couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks ago. And now that's fulfillment. That's relief. But I lived, he died, and I still don't understand why. 1944, I was escorting bombers over Durand, and they were going to bomb Durand. And it was a very heavy bombing raid. It was a daylight raid, and about 1,000 bombers. And we were doing what they call target entry cover. And that's waiting for the bombers to come in, clearing out the German Messerschmitts and 190s, if there were any there. Lots of times there weren't anything there, but sometimes they'd sneak in, you know, look for a little action. But anyway, our squadron commander called for just a, you know, a big wide turn spread out like that, so you don't get too close together, say 12 aircraft. One shell would do an awful damage if you're too close, so we spread out. He called for the command to get us spread out. And I wasn't afraid at that time, at that point. But anyway, he called for the turn, and we spread out. And I thought the aircraft bounced. In mine, there's just one person in it, and it bounced. I thought, geez, gee whiz, I mean, I hit a slipstream of a guy ahead of me. And then the next thing I knew, the motor quit, and it started smoking. And a shell exploded underneath the aircraft. It must have been. I didn't get out and look, you know, at 20,000 feet, you just assume that you're not going to get home that night. At that point, I was very much afraid. I called my squadron commander, Wonder Leader, or whatever. Yeah, Wonder Leader. That would be the squadron ID. I told him I was hit, and he said, okay. He said, the SCH 295, that's safe course home. Well, I had no bloody engine. I was over Durand, and I went on that course and then glided down and bailed out. But going down, I was particularly worried what was going to happen. I didn't whether I'd make a forced landing or all that sort of thing. And eventually around 10,000 feet, the ground didn't look very good, and trees around, things like that. And I didn't like to take a chance on a forced landing. You'd be coming in there about 120 miles an hour, and you hit a tree, that's it. So I bailed out. There's two ways of bailing out of a Spitfire: was to roll it over and fall out, or hold the nose up and get rid of your helmet and all that, and unbuckle everything, and then trimming the aircraft for down, the tail trim, so that it would, you just sort of hunched up on the seat, get the coop top open, and then let the aircraft go. But the mistake, I made a terrible mistake. I was at gliding speed, which is about 180 miles an hour, and I pulled the nose up, and I didn't get a chance to fall out at all. I rolled over and started to fall out, and it stalled and went into a spin. My parachute caught on the coop top behind me. At that point, I thought that was the end for me, because they come down very fast. And I remember saying, and this is a God's honest truth, maybe you might want to cut this out, but in the aircraft, and I said to myself, well, for Christ's sakes, Jewett, we always wondered how we were going to die. We knew that was possible, but I was afraid. No question about that. But I said, well, for Christ's sakes, Jewett, so this is how you're going to die. And then the next thing I knew, was that I was on the aircraft spinning around, saw the aircraft, the spit, hit the ground, explode near Freilenberg and in Germany, and this was enemy territory. And it exploded, and I was going round and around in the air, and I got my leg hurt from the tailplane of the aircraft, round, and something said, Arthur, you better pull the ripcord. With a parachute, I hadn't pulled the ripcord, and I got out. So that worked, and I get picked up eventually by the Americans and get back to the squadron. Never get captured. Anyway, and I'd tell people afterwards, after the war, I'd just say, look, I didn't have any problem at all. I just went to the north. The Autobahn was out there between Berlin and English Channel, and I went out and hired a taxi, saw a taxi driver, and said, okay, bub, take me to the English Channel. I'll pay you after the war. Yeah, I was pretty well upset, and I never panicked, though. We had good training. I don't think I had brains enough at that age to be scared, really scared. I didn't panic or run or anything like that. I got hidden in the woods, and then I got picked up by the Americans. After the war, we did, people say, well, you people did a great job. You won the war and this, that, and everything. And I went along with that for quite a long time. And then I began to realize that after the war, when there's 20 million or 30 million or 40 million or 50 million, the last I heard it was 50 million people. I don't think there was that many, maybe as a result of the war, but certainly not in military casualties or Air Force casualties and things like that. But there were so many civilians that were killed, and the aftermath of the war, disease and famine and cold and all that sort of thing. But anyway, I began to realize that nobody wins in a war, and I'd like to emphasize that. They just don't win in a war, either side. And the people that we fought against were pretty strong people, fine people. And I came to the conclusion, now this has got a bit of a joke to the end of it, but I came to the conclusion, and this is my idea, I came to the conclusion that it wasn't because we had braver men than the German people we fought against, or smarter generals, or better fighters like the Spitfire and against the Messerschmitt and the FW-190, which is a wonderful aircraft. It wasn't because of that. It wasn't because they're better tacticians or anything like that. It was just, and people say, well, what are you trying to say? And I said, I think, first time I said it, it came to mind that we weren't better or smarter or anything like that. It was simply and solely for one thing. And people would say, well, what's that? Well, I'd say, and you're going to think I'm crazy. I'd say, well, the Germans ran out of booze before we did. And you can't fight a war without booze. Because when we lined up there at the cenotaph on the 11th, 11 o'clock, before 11 o'clock, I've thought and asked, why couldn't we invite the people that are enemies and invite them? They lost their friends and things like that. Why couldn't they march with us?